This is 3.2 homework, functions and modeling part 2. So the point of this session is to try to figure out how to use our calculator to graph a formula, and then how to use that graph to plug in values into the formula when we plug in for the input, and then to solve for t in this case, or solve for the input when we plug in for the output. All right, so number 1, it says, let the distance d in miles a car has been driven be a function of the number of months t since the start of the year. The formula is given by d of t equals 250 times 1.403 to the t. Right, so we want to create a graph of this function on our calculator and draw it here and make sure that we label each axis. All right, so the idea is on your calculator, hit y equals, and we just hit 250 and then times 1.403 raised to the x. Right. So you might want to try to stop and think, what these letters actually mean. So, this is modeling the distance a car has traveled, right? So that's d, how many miles have been put on the car, after a certain number of months, and that's t, right? T for time, d for distance. Over here, we put in the formula. We'll have to make our window. So for our window, we'll start at 0 months, and we can go to, let's just do 12, right? That's 1 year. And then you can hit zoom and go to zoom fit. So scroll through them and find zoom fit, hit enter, and you should get a nice looking graph. Right, so it starts at the bottom, and slowly over time the distance, the mileage on the car goes up. And so on here, I'll draw my graph. All right, the bottom here, this is my time. Right, the horizontal is my input, so my time t in months. My output is the distance the car has been driven, so distance d in miles. And the graph looks something like that. I should probably label these, so I went from 0 to 12. And to figure out my outputs, you just hit the window button. So the inputs went from 0 to 12. The outputs go from 250 to about 14,500. Right? So maybe I'll put over here, down here, I'll say, okay, we started at about 250. And then up here, I put about 14,000, let's say just 500. I think that's good. Okay, maybe we want to title this, car miles, distance car traveled. Okay, then on part B, down here, it says how many miles were put on the car by the end of June. All right, so by the end of June, we have to understand, 1 is the end of January. All right, 2 would be in the February, 3, 4, 5, so 6 would represent the end of June. So what we're looking for here is, d of 6, all right, which means just plug in 6 for t. So we can use the graph and just hit trace 6 and enter, and out pops our answer. We'll round to the nearest mile. So this is approximately 1,907 miles were put on the car by the end of June. In functional notation, this can be expressed as d of 6 is approximately 1,907. On part C, it says in what month of the year will the car have been driven 4,500 miles. So this is not input, right? Input is time. This is output. So this is D stuff. So the idea is plug in for the output. So 4,500. And we have then the formula 250, right, times 1.403 403 right, to the t. And the idea is I want to solve this for t. So the way we do this, right, we graph the right and we graph the left. Right? So we already have the right graphed, so you can hit enter, and then you put 4,500 on here. Hit your graphing button, and hopefully you see a line that goes across the screen, and I do, so I'll copy this down. So I have my graph here. Right, that's the 250 times 1.403 to the t. Then here's 4,500. And to find where they cross, where they intersect, I just simply go and find the intersect button on here. So I hit second, trace to pull up the calculate menu, and go down to number 5, which is intersect. Hit enter, and then just hit enter 3 times, because the first curve, that's the first curve, right? The second curve, yep, that's the second curve. And guess, just get close to it. And now it pops my answer. And so t is about 8.5 months. And so if you think about this, right, 8 is the end of August, so 8.5 will put me into September. All right, so in what month of the year? In September, the car will have been driven about 4,500 miles, and we can write this in functional notation. D of 8.5 equals about 4,500, right? It's approximate because we rounded this t value. All right, and then the final question, it asks, how long will it take for a car to go from being driven 3,700 miles to 8,650 miles? Round your answer to 1 decimal place. All right, so the idea on this one is that we want to figure out first, how long it will take for the car to be driven 8,650 miles, then figure out how long it will take for the car to be driven 3,700 miles, find those 2 times, subtract, and that will give us how long it takes to go from here to there. All right, so the idea is first solve this equation, right? 8,650. Right, that's mileage stuff, that's distance stuff, so it goes in for D is equal to 250 1.403 to the t. Right, so find that t value, and then find the t value that will give us this, right? 3,700 equals 250 times 1.403 to the t. All right, so on my calculator, what I can do is I already have the formula on the right. I can do this simultaneously by doing, I have 8650, and y3 I can put 3700. Right. Then I can hit my graph, and you'll see I don't have one line crossing my curve. I should have 2. So over here I'll draw my graph, and you can see I have 1, 2, and I'm going to look for where each of these lines intersect my curve. Right, so I'll hit second, trace, go down to intersect, and hit enter. And it says first curve, sure, that's the first curve, and it jumps into the 8,650 curve, hit enter again for a guess, and I'll pop right over here. And so the first time is 10 point, and I'll write this all the way out, 4,65799, right, months. And then I can do the second one, right, so find what t is equal to here. So second, trace again, go down to intersect, hit enter. First curve again, yes. Now it jumps to 8,650. I don't want that. I want 3,700, so I'll just hit down, and notice it takes me down to y3, which is the graph of 3,700, and I hit enter again, and then give it a guess, and it pops out my answer. So this one's 7.957842. And I take these 2 times, and I subtract them. Right? So the idea, if after this amount of time your car has traveled 8,650 miles, after about 7.957842 months, your car has been driven about 3,700 miles. To find how long it took to travel from 3,700 to 8,650, you simply subtract the times. So on the next menu, I just clear it out, right? And so then I can hit 10.465799 minus 7.957842. Hit enter, and I get about, since it's a one decimal place, 2.5 months, so about 2.5 months.